What hyperfixation rabbit hole am I currently tumbling down? Well, I would love to tell you. I've recently become somewhat obsessed with the 80s dark fantasy sword and sorcery aesthetic. Some examples of this, so we're all on the same page, would be things like The Neverending Story, The Black Cauldron, The Dark Crystal, or even any piece of art by Frank Frazetta. So naturally, being a big reader, I decided to go on a hunt for books that match this vibe. Now, I did order quite a few, but the first one I ended up reading was Nine Princes in Amber by Roger Zelazny. Before I even tell you about this book specifically, I want to mention that getting a hold of any of these books has been its own little adventure, because a lot of them are out of print and thus very expensive to just order. So I've ended up ordering a lot of them either used or from my library or just other random places. For example, this book, the cheapest way for me to get a hold of it was to buy this compendium that has all 10 of the books in the series in it. But so far, I've only read the first one. Coming in at just a little over 100 pages, it's practically a novella. But there is a lot packed into those pages. This is a fever dream of a book. The book starts, as so many do, with Carl Corey waking up in a hospital bed having lost all of his memories. He ends up breaking out of the hospital, and while he's interrogating the hospital manager, he finds out that he was in a car accident and has been recovering at the expense of his sister. All of this is happening in like modern day-ish, by the way. He heads to his sister's house, finds out his name is actually Corwin. All of this is already really eerie, but then his brother, Random, that's his name, shows up and he's being chased by like monsters which they have to fight off. They ultimately decide that they are going to head to this place called Amber, and Random is going to protect Corwin along the way. And this is where things get really weird, because as they're driving their car to Amber, the world and reality itself starts to shift around them. The type of road they're driving on, the steering wheel, the world around them keeps changing. At one point, they see this big monster thing just like chowing down on cars. All of this is leading to their ultimate destination of Amber, which is described as the real world. It may seem like I'm spoiling a lot here, but that's basically the first like 2 chapters. The book is absolutely wild. I will say the book is very much 80s fantasy. It is a product of its time for sure. All the men are very manly and capable of just about anything, and women show up from time to time just to be hot. The writing is also very interesting to me because the world and the story is so vividly imaginative, yet somehow the prose and the dialogue themselves feel very blunt and emotionless. Also, this book doesn't really have an ending. It really feels like the first episode of like an HBO show. It clearly expects you to keep reading to find out what happens next. I haven't really decided if I'm willing to go on a 10-book journey in this world, but I do think I'll read at least the next one before I decide. Would I recommend this? I have no idea. In no way is it the best book I've ever read, but it does feel appropriate for this journey I've decided to go on. Now, if you have a recommendation for this 80s dark fantasy vibe that I'm searching for, feel free to drop it in the comments, okay? Books, video games, movies, whatever. I'll show you a couple others that I did end up picking up though. So I got the Dragonlance trilogy. I heard this was great. The next book I'll actually be reading is Legend by David Gemmell, another series that seems kind of hard to get a hold of. I also ordered Soldrin's Garden, which is the first book in the Lioness, I think it's a trilogy, as well as the first book in the Elric saga. This came very highly recommended. And I ordered a copy of The Neverending Story because I've never read it. I might also do some movie reaction. I don't know how deep we're going yet, okay? So bear with me. I don't even know if this is something y'all are interested in. This seems very niche to me, so let me know if you want to see more book reviews in this specific category. All right, good talk, back to reading.